thanks for joining me. I'm at Holy Trinity Church, Pontargothi, between Carmarthen and Llandilo, to visit what I think is one of the best Victorian churches in Wales. It's certainly unique, and it has an interesting history too. The outside is pretty enough, but inside is a bit of a surprise. We'll get to that in a minute. It was designed by the talented and scholarly architect Benjamin Bucknell. It's in Romanesque style. In other words, it has round-headed mock Norman arches, with early English Gothic details too, and it's built in the local sandstone with bathstone dressings and a timber spirelet. It's Grade 2 star listed and one of the jewels of architecture in Wales, principally for its interior. Its creation took over a decade. The man who commissioned it, Henry James Bath of nearby Alltyferin mansion, didn't replace an older church. This was a new build. He built it for his own family to worship in and as a chapel of ease for the local people of the village. There was in fact already a church very nearby at Llanegwad, but the services there were in Welsh and the Baths were from England and non-Welsh speakers. He also had a crypt built here for his and his family's remains to be laid to rest when they died. However, the church was not so ready to accept this wonderful gift, and they refused to consecrate the burial ground, so to this day it has no graves and the crypt lies empty. I've teased you long enough about the interior. Let's go through the door under the Romanesque tympanum and see inside. Over the door is the west window, where Henry Bath immortalised himself for posterity. The glass, by the way, is by Clayton and Bell, one of the best Victorian stained glass makers, and in this window they conventionally depict biblical scenes at the top, but below is Henry Bath, shown with Holy Trinity Church in his hands, offering it up to God. This kind of donation image is medieval in style and allowed Bath to remind us of his generosity. Also depicted are his wife Margaret, the daughter of Charles Lambert of Chile, and his nephew and eventual heir, Edward Henry Bath. Henry and Margaret were childless. As you've already seen from these pictures alone, the church is heavily decorated inside. I'll let you experience the full glory of it before I give you a more detailed look, and then I'll tell you the story of the church's creation and more about the Bath family. The glass in the nave portrays 4 prophets and the 4 gospel writers. The murals show the Garden of Eden, Abraham about to sacrifice Isaac, Moses receiving the 10 Commandments, and Job. The rest illustrate the New Testament, mostly from the Gospel of Matthew, with an emphasis on charity, something which characterised the Bath family. The chancel focuses on the Trinity and the death and resurrection of Jesus. All this lavish decoration is a world away from the religiosity of Henry James Bath's father and grandfather, who were simple Quakers and philanthropists, originally from Cornwall, but they moved to Swansea in the Regency period and made a lot of money from copper trading in Swansea. Henry's father built up a fleet of ships to import copper from South America. Henry and his brother Edward and sister Susan all married children of their father's South American trading partner, Charles Lambert. Henry's father died in 1864, and Henry then moved here and built his mansion and commissioned the building of this church. He became a JP here and was High Sheriff for the county in 1873. He was very generous to the children and poor of the parish. Though this church meant so much to him, Henry Bath never saw its completion. He went to Chile in 1875 to see his brother-in-law and found his niece, the 19-year-old Miss Lambert, very ill, and decided to bring her home with him, hoping that a change of climate would help her to recover. Sadly, she died early on in the voyage in June, and he then suffered a stroke in the September, still on board ship. So when it finally reached these shores, it bore two bodies. They were buried side by side at Llanegwad Church. The funeral was attended by about 500 people. Mrs. Bath oversaw the completion of the church. These murals may have originally been intended to be completed in full colour, but to hasten the completion were left monochrome, with gilding on those in the sanctuary. She quietly lived at Alltyferin for a decade, carrying on the charitable work of her husband and completing his church, but she died in Oxford in 1902. There is a memorial to Edward and his family at Llanegwad, but I could not see one to Henry James Bath. This church is his memorial. It speaks of his piety, his generosity and philanthropy, and his taste. There is really nothing like it in the whole of Wales outside Castell Coch and Cardiff Castle, both by the architect William Burgess for the Marquis of Bute. This church is very like the churches of Burgess, built in England, and I'm sure he was an influence. The Bath family were associated with Alltyferin and this church until 1923. The house was then sold and sadly demolished around 1960. The Bath family were a remarkable family, successful in business yet true to their principles, from first to last, generous with their wealth, and they were anti-slavery in the early 19th century, something perhaps hinted at in one of the wall paintings in the church. Their business, Henry Bath and Son, no longer in family hands, continues to this day, and though their house is gone, their church stands as a testimony to their benevolence. I'd like to say a special thank you to the Reverend Robert Pattinson for kindly opening up the church and allowing me to film there, and for giving me such a warm welcome. Thank you for watching to the end. Before you go, please remember to give the video a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel for more such videos. And as always, thank you for watching.